Hello everybody, I hope you're doing very well. So, it's been a little while and I hope you're all, got out and did some woodwork of some description, or if not, something you've enjoyed. And yeah, it's been good. I think it was a good choice for me anyway to take a break from doing the more kind of technique style videos and just concentrate on making something myself. Even kind of the little short things that you can do on YouTube, those kind of like 60-second or less videos. Haven't done as many of those. Still chucked a few things on Instagram, but not as much because I'm just focusing on getting something done. Now, what I'll do is show you. You can kind of see here there's something growing up and it's nearly finished. What it's going to be is a version of that one there, but I've changed a few things. These joins here are going to be done with half lap dovetails, so when you look at it from the side it looks like it's got continuous grain, and then when you look down from the top you see the half lap dovetails into it, and it's going to be ash for the main framework, then brown oak for the fascias. I quite like that light and dark contrast, and I've got some small metal knobs to go with it rather than those great big ones. And looking at that, it reminded me of how there isn't much that I see of how you would call original design work put out in kind of mainstream woodworking. Perhaps I'm not looking hard enough, and feel free to put that my way. And I think if I had to describe myself in terms of designs that I come up with, is I'm pretty much a copycat kind of person. I don't know what you guys do. I might find something and evolve it a little bit like that, but the basic proportions are there, and I'm just using some different, coloured timbers and different bits of ironmongery, but nothing too drastic. But I don't think that's such a bad thing to be. To be a really good designer, I think you've got to have perhaps a bit of natural artistic flair. I think being good at drawing, that all comes into play. Almost being a little bit of an artist, and I think I'm too, how would I say, functional for that to happen. So I'd say most of my stuff is a strong element of copycat, but that's okay. I don't think I should be too stressed out about that. It's I think most people are. There's not many people that have reinterpreted the world around them or really broken the mould. There's very few of those. Yeah, and I think it's good where I feel that I've drawn inspiration. I like to show that and the source material that it's come from, just to be fully open. So I have seen a few things where people have done what they feel are totally original designs, and it looks awful. But again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But you can overthink things sometimes, and certainly for your average home, just keeping it simple, keeping it simple is a good idea. So at the bench, a couple of things we can talk about. I had a set of Ashley Isles chisels, and I've been putting those through their paces, and yeah, that I'm keen on the second-hand, the vintage stuff. It's kind of my preference. But I've got to say, if you want to buy new chisels that have that vintage feel, then these are the ones. I've been positive about the Narix Richters. They were nice, but I did just find the 1/4 inch a little bit difficult to deal with. No such problem with the Ashley Isles. Beautifully balanced. People might not like them because they don't look as clinically perfect, but for me, I don't really see that's a problem. I don't get why you'd want clinically perfect. Again, it's all personal taste, but just the balance and function of those is brilliant, and the value is outstanding. I mean, you can buy 4 of those for about 100 quid, and you compare those to some of the North American brands, and you can only buy 1 chisel for 100 quid. And that's, they're hand ground. A lot of people, when they buy them, might, especially if you're new, you might do things like look at it and look down the length of it and think, oh, the grinding of the bevels on the side isn't exactly perfect. But, oh, for God's sake, please don't be one of those people. The face here, and a lot of people call it the back, but the flat face, they grind them slightly hollow, so you don't have to faff around with flattening it. You can just hone and relieve the burr, and you're just ready to go. It's really, really good. So I've been using those. Been using the prioritise router a bit. Again, I was never really brought up with hand routers. It was just a case of using the chisel, and I think that puts you in good stead for when you do come to using a router. It's a very good thing to use, but you want to get everything pretty much perfect with a chisel and then just skim it off. It's not like you want to be there just churning away with a hand router. It's not really what it's for, in my opinion anyway. It's just, if you're just using it for levelling off, you know, just a granny's tooth or a hag's tooth, whatever you want to call it, it's just as good. What else have we been doing? So what I'll do is I'll give you a little scoop now to show you how compact my work area has become. So my bench is 6 foot long, and I've got a little bit of space in front of it. I'd say I've got about 1.5 foot in front of it, and I've got about a couple of feet behind it, and then swishing around this way, got the bandsaw, which is on a trolley, and the lathe, and then the lathe bed stops, and then I've got my son's workbench there, and he's expressed a bit of interest in doing some bits, which has been cool. He has this weekend, here it is, we picked up this little Diston, which is very similar to my Atkins some time ago at a boot fair, and he did most of the renovation work, but he finished it off this weekend. Yeah, I've just left him alone to do what he's wanted with it, and I'll sharpen it up for him, and it hasn't been used a great deal, so it's not going to take too much to get it back in good shape. He shellacked the handle, and yeah, it's come up really nice. We also yesterday grabbed a moment on the lathe, and again, this isn't anything particularly useful, but just spun up a bit of wood and did a bit of faffing about with it. And yeah, I'd never pressurise kids to be doing anything like that. You know, it's can be pretty cringy sometimes when parents want to live out their lives through their children, but if there's something in here he wants to give a go, or equally my daughter, whatever, then they're always welcome to do that, and I'm always happy to be interrupted for that kind of thing. But yeah, so the space, it must be 6, 7, 8, 10 foot by, probably a 10 foot by 10 foot space that's pushed into it at the moment. But that bandsaw, absolute godsend doing this, because I've got lots of ash that would just, you can see it's got a groove in there. It was just reclaimed for an old built-in. You can see where there was like a Euro hinge bored into it, and just being able to cut it back quickly and getting it dimensioned ready for work was just, it's a breeze on that one. There's a dust extractor down here, one of the real cheap lumberjack ones, which is perfect. I was initially worried that running a bandsaw and an extractor would just trip the electrics out, but that really hasn't been a problem at all. You can just, again, a sharp blade in there. It's nothing fancy. It's just a regular bandsaw blade. The main thing you want to do is just make sure if you're working with solid wood and you're using it for resawing, just make sure it's coarse by the coarsest blade you can. That's like a 3 teeth per inch, and to make sure it's sharp and everything's set up and well adjusted and away you go. And I also have been able to use Peter's panel saw that he sent me, and I've got to say, Peter definitely knows how to sharpen a saw. I would say that he is, and this isn't difficult, far outclasses me in saw sharpening ability. I was using it for cross-cutting through the ash before I would, get onto the bandsaw, and it's just cuts like an absolute dream. And it's nice having something like this. I mean, this is what can be tricky if you're getting into doing up older tools. Things like a Bailey plane is super easy to do up because it's just a basic kit of parts and one straight cutting edge on it. But with a saw, you want to make sure you've got something straight enough that you can keep all the teeth shaped properly. And yeah, if you've got someone like Peter watching your channel, then you're lucky. You never know what's going to turn up on your doorstep. But although I can sharpen a saw, I don't think I can sharpen it as well as Peter can. But maybe that'll come in time. So again, there's going to be nothing that interesting coming up. This week I've got one more piece just to put on the top of that one, then I'll be cutting out the backs, joining them in. Maybe next weekend I might have this glued up a couple of stages, but it's going to be glue up a piece. And because we've got a construction where you've got joints here, it's not like I can get in and clean that up, so I can't go ahead and just glue it up all in one hit. It'll be glue the blade base together, that go off, let it all go nice and rigid, then plane through, get it nice and clean, plane that through, then glue it up. Same thing, so it'll have to be glued up over a number of days. But that's fine, because when that's happening, you glue something up, get it in the clamps, and then you can be cutting out some draw material and you do something like that, so it keeps moving. And then once I've done that, one of the reasons also why I haven't been doing tons of videos is that I've also been updating the kitchen at home. So you're doing, lots of various stuff, and probably going to do like how to make a shooting board, like a quick and dirty one, real quick, because I think shooting board is incredibly useful. I'm not going to argue about that, but a lot of people can get really lost in how complicated they need to be, and I think we can just knock one up in like virtually no time. And if I can show that and how quickly you can do it, it might make some people think, do you know what, I've seen some bits of scrap wood, or I can buy some cheap materials, let's just get going with that, rather than going down the route of thinking, oh gosh, I need a shooting board, I better buy that really expensive one that's being promoted in the infomercial on YouTube. I need that one, otherwise my work's not going to be any good. And I think that's some useful stuff. I'm not against anybody buying whatever they want, that's fine, but there is such a proliferation of videos about buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this, and it's like, wow, you don't need that much stuff, not really, you don't need that many planes. Again, it's fun to collect, don't get me wrong, but people collect baseball cards, handbags, shoes, watches, whatever you want. I'm not against it. It's just if you're looking at it from just a practical standpoint, you don't need too much stuff. And certainly with a shooting board, it can be really, really simple. And I think it's worthwhile looking at knocking up a cheap and easy one. Then if you want to chuck it away in the future, then fine. Then you can maybe buy one or make one, whichever suits. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I stuck up an article on the blog, and that was it sounds ridiculous, but a pre-review on the Quangshan plane that I'm going to do on. I bought one, again, here on one hand I'm saying, hey, you don't need to buy stuff, and it's like, well, you've bought stuff, you tool. And the reason I've done that is that because that tool is made in China, it's quite often received quite controversially. So I went through and I thought, you know what, I want to put up a pre-review, so if people feel that they need to bring up their opinions about that particular way of buying and using a tool, you can put it there, and I've kind of put my thoughts on it, and then there'll be a review. So it's like, well, this is just discussing the function of the tool. So you can have two things. If you want to have a party with the political side of tools, which kind of sounds crazy, but that's the world we live in, or just the function of tools, you've got both columns. And I won't turn the comments off, you can say good, bad, whatever, and it's kind of taps into that copying discussion we had with the router plane, how there's one doing the rounds at the moment that looks really similar to the Veritas. I haven't held the alternative one, but what the Quangshan ones do have, I'll just touch on it real brief, is a cost advantage. The alternative router that looks very similar to the Veritas, I've not had it to look at, is the same price as the Veritas, and it's claimed there's like a few improved features, but for the same money, I'm not sure that I want to take a punt on something that's sold on AliExpress and touted by on YouTube infomercials. That's just my opinion, I might be proved wrong. I'd rather have something like a Veritas, because if I lose interest with it, I know I can sell that and I'm not going to lose anything. if they're not available, which often things like Lee Nielsen and Veritas aren't, you probably sell it for more than you bought it for. Whereas I'm not sure about a Chinese made router plane with a YouTuber's name put on it. I don't know quite what that is. It's a bit like the was it Logan Paul's energy drink Prime. I hope the world looks back on that phase and just thinks, what? Why was everybody so crazy about that? You know. So yeah, there's that. And but the nice thing is with the Quang Sheng is it's a lot cheaper. So for instance, I think you could spend up to in the UK £450 on a Lee Nielsen number 3. That would be their bronze version, and the Quang Sheng is 150. If you get a Bailey, which is just as good as both of those and would probably be a better plane for most people, you might just need to do a little bit of work on it, and that might be off-putting for some. You know, it's a massive saving. The Bailey might cost you maybe 30, 40 quid at the most. So the Quang Sheng, for a lot of people, it's like, well, do you know what? I can't justify ponying up 450 quid, but 150, oh, a bit of a, I can go for that. You know, so I think it's valid. I think when it's that much cheaper than the top line stuff, it's worth looking at. But yeah, I don't have much else really. If anybody, I could ask, if anybody's made it to the end of this, credit to you if you've made it. People mention about the sound, and I get that, and again there won't be any editing on this because I don't keep my computer at home, I keep it at work. If you know like a microphone you can just plug into a phone, I don't really want one of those lapel mic things. I tried one of those and it's like being on a dog lead, but I risk pulling over the tripod. I don't know whether there's something that I can attach to it and just have it suspended up on the ceiling or something. I know I can do that job myself and look for it, but if any of you have any experience, you might go, hey, I've tried it, that's a good option for you. It would save me wading through all the crappy listings on Amazon and buying something and thinking it was pointless and it didn't do the job. And I know, again, I do take the feedback on things like video sound very seriously because I want the videos to be as good as they can, but I also, there's no money in this channel, there is no sponsor. If you're a camera company and you want me to say your camera is the best, I will do that. There's lots of things I will be sponsored for. I don't know, Pringles, WD-40, any petrochemical company, I'll say nice things about you, but when it comes to woodwork, I don't want to be sponsored by anybody to do with woodwork. Not that anybody would want to anyway, but there is no money. I think since I started doing these videos, I've earned less than £60 through advertising with the monetization with the ads, and they only pay out when you get 60 quid. I don't think I've been paid out yet by YouTube. If I get that payout, I'll look at spending it on a mic, but you know, I don't want to put loads of my money behind this venture, which for me is just a bit of fun. So any recommendations on a mic which isn't super dear and might work with a phone, just an Android phone would be pretty cool. And yeah, I hope you've had fun in your shop, and we'll catch up soon. All right.